Any questions?
I'll propose if you have questions to ask them to Andrew directly, and coffee is on me. Thank you. So we'll continue with the agenda, which was supposed to be in the morning. So I'll call our colleagues from RIRs, Pablo from EPINIC to give the update, Owen DeLong from ARIN to give the update, Diego Mena from LACNIC, Axel from RIPE NCC, Axel to do the NRO update, the ASO update, Mark Atkins, and the IANA update, Pierre D'Angino. So they will be doing the updates, and maybe we can take questions after. So gentlemen, I think there are only gentlemen here. Can I invite you on stage? Thank you.
Hi everyone, Pablo had to leave to catch a plane. I'm George Michelson from the research section in APNIC, so I'll give the APNIC report. Do I have to point this at anything? Ah, left-handed. Left-handed. Clever trick. So this is our mission statement, our vision statement. I think we're all after the same thing here. We've split our reporting into three broad areas. So I'm going to give you a report on a service focus, the support focus, and the collaborate focus. Starting with the service, we've got quite a few charts here. We've had fairly consistent and steady growth in IPv6. If you're interested in the details, all of this information is available online in different ways. We recently actually did some work to improve the uptake of V6 by running what we call a one-click service. So if you're entitled to a V6 allocation, the application process has been massively simplified, and we think there's some indication in our allocation numbers that this has increased relative uptake. It's quite interesting to think about the process costs of getting something you're automatically entitled to. Reducing them definitely does have an impact. In V4, the transaction rates are obviously fairly different because we've been in run out for quite some time now. We talk about final/8 policy in terms of you're only allowed to get one, but there is actually this subsequent operation where the IANA has been releasing small amounts of resource that have come back into the central pool. And in the APNIC region, we made a policy decision that everyone who had taken one of our final/8 allocations, which is a variable amount up to a /22, I believe, of space. Forgive me, I'm vague because I don't do a lot of the policy work, but we allowed all of these people to come in for a second bite at the cherry, which is really quite nice because it sort of brings out that question of, well, do you have use for real address that Andrew was talking about? And the answer is, people do. They have been coming back quite consistently and taking up their second allocation from this round of release from IANA. So we're basically doing somewhere around 100 allocations a month. There's quite a lot of breakdown available. In the transfer space, APNIC is actually nothing like as active as the RIPE NCC are. I think they might be doing somewhere around 100 a month. That's the number I've got here, but we're really down in the weeds. We're more like a dozen a month. I don't think I've actually got a sense of why there would be that volume difference, because in population terms and in the density of deployment terms, I think there is as much interest in access to resources in Asia as there is in Europe. But for whatever reason, the dynamic is just quite different. We have a lot of data coming in from the ARIN region, of course. We have a pre-approval process, so if you want to engage in transfer activities in the APNIC region, you can go into process to get pre-approved based on justified need processes. Most of our transfers are taking place in that mechanism. We've got a public listing service, and once you're pre-approved, you can actually see who's interested in acquiring and also who has access to resources they can release. And we have a quite open market process where traders and people who want to help liberalize access to resources can come into process and register and then help provide, I suppose, fundamental liquidity in the processes of getting access to resources. So with ASN assignments, they're fairly steady, but again, our numbers of ASN is really quite low by comparison with both the US and with Europe. There's really quite a different routing practice in our area. We do really maybe 50 a month. Most of these are now 4-byte ASN. We have a very small reserve of 2-byte ASN left. For those of you of a technical mind, there is really substantively no major difference between 4 and 2-byte ASN, with one very important distinction. You can't do some community string activity with a 4-byte ASN because it's bigger than the field in the BGP protocol. And there's really no way out of this other than going back into design, making BGP able to take bigger numbers, because you can't chop them in half and fit them in the space. So if you use community string mechanisms, it's very hard to do that in a world of 4-byte ASN. But having noted that, we don't actually get many people in our region coming back. By and large, they're quite content with 4-byte AS routing mechanisms. The interesting thing here is that we also see a very high rate of actual use. It's with AS numbers. Some work we did earlier in research showed that older ASs kind of age out. They don't get used. And so there's a question mark, are ASs actually being used, or are they just a must-have item? And the evidence with the 4-byte is, once we give someone a 4-byte AS, it appears in BGP fairly promptly. So on membership, we've had an acceleration in the last number of years, essentially because downstream enterprises couldn't get addressing indirectly through an agency. I mean, the classic problem with a customer fronting is you say, you can't have any more. But if they front as a member on us directly, they can get their final /8 allocation. So there's a fairly clear dynamic. As a result of hitting this policy process, we're going to see a rise in membership. So we also have the NIRs, and they are a really quite different structure that you guys aren't exposed to so much in this region. They have also had huge acceleration. I'd like to stress there's an absolute consistency of policy application here. It's not as if there is any radical difference in being an NIR member or an APNIC member directly. It's the same policy that applies in our region. So the total number of members in our region, it's actually up around 8,000 these days, which is quite large. It is a bit of a competition with the other regions. I think the NCC is still winning. So we all have to work harder to get bigger. We've been working a bit on our portal. We had a very early design exercise that was actually led by Sanjaya, who's now our 2IC when he was working in the technical field. And we've been trying to see if we can actually make this a better user experience. We've been looking at quality of service. We've been looking at how people contact the Executive Council. We've been tracking correspondence. So we've been doing a number of things to try and improve engagement with the membership. Whois, we've finally realized that a significant amount of our Whois load is out of region, and we've gone with an initially quite simple distribution in 4 locations worldwide. We've gone into a relationship with a CDN partner who's able to do efficient address location based on client side. It's a nice model for getting service reliability as well, but it's also primarily about reducing RTT, because we had a huge amount of queries around address use in Asia, and they were inevitably having to do probably 1 trans-Pacific link, and quite often 2, because we sometimes see packet flows from Japan to America to Australia, or we're seeing transatlantic, trans-Pacific. So we were getting quite large accumulated delays in that service. So distribution, it's had 2 benefits. The other thing that's nice about this is it's enabled us to cope slightly better with some of the attack problems. There are times when Whois is just absolutely swamped with load. And centralizing that, well, we had no problem with the CPU component, but we were reaching network bottlenecks in the single point of presence. So we've now got the classic defense posture that we're distributed, and we distribute the DOS load that we're seeing when people come into Whois. Some of this, I think, actually is people having a go to see if they can knock us over. I mean, that happens, right? If you're a significant name in the community, people like to have a go. But some of it, it's not. It's because people are attacking somewhere else, and their firewalls have been written crudely to use Whois to find out what's going on. And if the attack profile is coming from Asian footprint addresses, they're going to come knocking on our door. What are you doing? Well, unfortunately, it's not us, but nonetheless, we have to sync the traffic. So here's some signs of how that works. It's been really very, very nice. We can actually get up to about 6,000 queries a second in this and sync them in the US rather than having to deal with them at the master service in APNIC. We're also working on a quite radical shift in our systems architecture. Aaron and RIPE NCC both led the way in a really big reconsideration of internal architecture work. Aaron had a complete rewrite of all of their services in Java and then picked up on the REST model of service delivery, and they've done an amazing job of converting to a consistent access method that's actually really good for members, because it means in your NMS, your operational systems, you can now write systems against a really consistent interface to do transactions with the registry. The NCC are doing a similar thing. I don't know if Axel's going to talk about it, but we picked up on that and we thought we have to look at this. So we've been re-architecting our design to try and work out how to do a better job of handling the information. Message buses, message passing, eventual consistency, they're quite fundamental concepts in computer science that are very applicable to running distributed, highly reliable services. I'd invite any of you who have problems in data management in a large software system to think about architectural considerations. It's kind of a pain to have to do this. I mean, you have a working system, rewriting it. What's wrong with Fortran? Why can't we stick with Fortran and COBOL solutions? But every now and then, you need to think about coming from the 1960s into the 1980s, and that's pretty much what we've been doing. We've also been looking at our infrastructure and made the virtual platform a bit easier to run with. We've done quite a lot of work in disaster recovery and auditing. That was a collaboration with the NCC a number of years back. We shared efforts in designing a DRP analysis, thinking about business continuity, and we've been applying that into our deployment. So in accountancy and transparency, we've had quite a lot of focus on this, and it's partly because of things like ICANN and the other RIRs being asked to demonstrate the accountability measures, and it's also about the IANA stewardship, which put questions on the table. So we've done a lot of work to try and document what we think the state of play is and work with the other RIRs. And the NRO website actually has quite a lot of information about this. At APNIC, we did ISO 9001 compliance, and we've been getting regular audits against that. It's quite nice. It's a legitimating process around what you actually do. Quite a lot of the compliance tests, they put barriers in place that you have to try and reach goals, but ISO 9000 has a quality that it says, look, let's just be honest about what you actually do. Now, if you make a declaration about that, we can then say, are you doing it or not? And that's got a really nice concrete quality. You don't have to aim for future outcomes. You just are honest about what you do and do the best you can. So that's worked quite well for us. So we also had quite a lot of work on our fee schedule and activities. I can't speak in any great detail to the breakdowns here because I'm just not in brief to talk to this. But we've been working a little on improving transparency in our intentions around the way we use the funds. And it's worked quite well. It's encouraged a better dialogue about the correct way to use the finances. So if I move on, the training activity has been quite high. We've held 76 courses in 29 locations, and about 2,300 people have been trained in the year. We mainly do face-to-face, but we also have a large video archive, so people can do self-paced work offline, which is really quite popular. Travel in the Asian footprint is very, very difficult. I imagine it's a similar issue here, so this has worked quite well for us. Network operation group support in region has been good. We've actually upped that activity quite a lot. There's been quite a few new NOGs established in region. We attend, we do support, we do training and outreach, and we provide the host master and face-to-face services there. Some of the things that you don't think about at the time that crop up here are quite interesting. We have to have a sense of high trust membership. So we actually need to do sort of like two-factor proof of who you are to give you permission to do things like electronic voting. And if you don't come into process with us often, we don't see you. But if you go to a training event that we're holding in your economy, maybe in Dhaka or somewhere in Malaysia, that's an opportunity for us to do 100 points tests against your business papers and passports, which means we can bring you into process more fully, which means you can vote online. So there's a whole range of things we get from actually improving the interaction with the membership at these meetings. Here's just a breakdown of some of the NOG events that we've been doing, I think. We also have a community development activity that's been going on. We got into an MOU with ICANN to improve deployment of the LRoot servers in the Asia Pacific. We already had a lot of work with the NCC with K, ISC with iRoot, and NetNod with NetNod with I, ISC with F, and the NCC with K. But L, the ICANN route, is a lovely, lovely design solution. It's very small, very, very easy to deploy in distant locations. So we did a bit of work on that, had our fellowships program, and we also picked up on a problem of succession planning. There's an awful lot of old people in the business, and we need young, fresh minds. I say to people, we're zombies and we need fresh brains. So we've been trying to encourage young people to get involved in our process with a view to training them up to participate in policy development in future years. So the policy development, well, it's a wheel of life. You go through a consensus process, you go through to a development process, and it's really quite central to what we do. We've tried to get some sense of purpose and process together, and we've got this diagram to encapsulate the information flow. There's been quite a few improvements, actually. We did our number transfer proposal. We've got Prop 109 looking at the reallocation of Net 1. We've got distribution of returned addresses. That's had the consequence of people being entitled to come back for more addresses. We also worked on a way to try and judge consensus different. The hum mechanism, the voice mechanism, it can be quite confronting, and we have a problem in our community that younger participants are not always very confident to be heard, to speak, to participate. It kind of goes against their cultural norms. So we thought about tools that might encourage people to register their view against the emerging consensus. And we've got a quite nice system now that gives a graphical representation of the change in the consensus as a conversation goes on. And the person on the podium who's maybe calling a consensus can tune the question and invite the floor to participate. It's quite dynamic. It's interesting. It's changed the way people engage, and we are thinking about using it for SIGs in future. You have to be a little cautious of taking a tool and turning it into something bigger than it is. I think real consensus has to be established in process and on lists as usual. But this is a nice way of exposing how people feel at the meeting. And in particular, it empowers remote participants. We've had a huge time delay with our video outreach meetings, often 15, 20 seconds, which means it's very hard for them to meaningfully engage in a vote or an acclamation. Sorry, not a vote. We don't vote. In the processes of consensus measurement, online, they can get a very quick signal it's time to participate, and we can get a sense of convergence from remote participation much more smoothly. On events, well, we've been doing our usual regional meetings. We've got the 2 conferences a year. So 6 in region, we've had quite a few different activities focusing on that. We've been doing a lot of training, 16 economies in region, 24 presentations, media coverage, did a workshop with the ITU, and we're in quite active engagement with our regional task force, providing secretarial support and also engagement to try and improve SIG's uptake in region. We've recently picked up on the security issue. We've hired a specialist, Adli Wahid, who used to work in the Malaysian CERT, so it's possible that some of you from the LEA and CERT context would know him. And he's been doing a lot of outreach. He's also on the board of FIRST. And I think our engagement there has actually improved markedly. I don't know about the other regions, but the primary consumer of Whois in our region is now law enforcement agencies. They are essentially our lead customer. And so we have to think really strongly about how we train these people to understand addresses, understand address management, and understand the tools. And I think a direct engagement is going to work very well for us. So another thing on Adley's plate is trying to improve uptake in RPKI. You know how I said it's a competition about membership? Well, it's a competition about RPKI as well. And my colleague Axel is in the lead because he has got Alex Band, who has been working on promotion very, very, very hard. He's done an amazing job of engaging with the community. In the RIPE region, it's reached the point that he doesn't have to do any more pushing. The sustained rate of uptake, I think, is 1 or 2 a day. I don't think they'll stop engaging with people, but they've really achieved critical mass. And we realised we'd done next to no promotion. I should add, by the way, that LACNIC also have done an amazing job here. I think in Ecuador in particular, you did a whole of economy, RPKI outcome, fantastic. So Adley has been engaging, and we now have this Ready to Roar campaign, roar, to try and get out there and get some minds into this. And it's started to work. We've had an increase in uptake. Giving away a t-shirt is an amazing motivation in our industry. It must be the cost of doing washing that makes everyone want to get free t-shirts. Labs, well, this is dear to my heart. I could have got rid of all the rest of the slides and just talked about this one, but that wouldn't have been very fair. But we're doing a lot of measurements, and I'm actually going to talk about them in the other room very soon, actually. So I won't go on about them now. There's another initiative which is really worth flagging, and that's ISIF. It's very similar to the FIRE initiative, which runs in your region, and it's about technical innovation and support in the Asia-Pacific footprint in emerging internet economies. I'm very, very proud of being on one of the committees that helps approve applications for this, and I think it's just stunning to get people saying, look, I could do this amazing thing with ICT if I just had a little bit of help. We get to help them, and then they come back next year and they say, I can do a lot more if you give me a little more. We've had a repeat application from an organization in Vanuatu, did an amazing job of Wi-Fi, low power network distribution in their community. Really great stuff. Lots of education, lots of work on women and children's health initiatives, which I think are very, very important. I think FIRE is doing very much the same thing. Great program. So, finally, in the collaboration space, the global cooperation is really very solid. There's a lot of converged behaviour, and we understand how to talk to each other. We understand how to talk into intergovernmental contexts, how global outreach works. I think it's going okay. The IANA stewardship transition process has been very committed, and we're participants in CRISP. These are the CRISP people who are working from our region along with the other participants. I'm sure some of them will be familiar names. I can see one there from your own region I recognise. 2, 3. So it's working well. And for community engagement, we kind of really upped our activity and worked out how we had to get out and talk to people and spread the word in a number of different ways. So one of them is the blog, and my social media contact would be very cross with me if I didn't invite you to think about guest blogging. We welcome input from all the regions. If you've got anything you'd like to tell the community, please get in touch with us and we'd be happy to put it on our service. As well as improving communication, we've gone into social media in a big way, doing a lot of Twitter and Facebook. We've got a video library that's growing quite large. And you're all invited to our next meeting in Jakarta. So, that's it from me. Thank you.
Good afternoon. I'm Owen DeLong from AARON. I'm on the AARON Advisory Council, actually. I'm not RIR staff, so it's a little unusual for me to be giving this presentation, but bear with me. In 2015, we've increased our focus on customer service. We've continued working on IPv4 to IPv6 transition awareness. And I personally hate that word transition. I think we need to talk about IPv6 in terms of deployment and, recognize that v4 is pretty much staying where it is for a while. Continued participation in internet governance forums, yada yada, all the usual. Trends, we've got a lot of new customers making use of our /24 minimum policy. Earlier in the year, or actually late last year, we actually took out all of the large aggregate requirements in IPv4 policy and put the minimum allocation unit for all policies down to /24. That's been working out very well for us. Many first-time requests new to the registry system, and a lot of them are upstreams that are saying, hey, we don't have any space anymore, go get your space directly from the RIR, and we're seeing more and more transfers, of course. In terms of operational improvements, we did another round of customer satisfaction survey, and we're working on integrating transfers better into our ARIN Online website. The current IPv4 inventory is dwindling. 0.15/8 equivalents at the time the slides were written. I think that's down around 0.12 now, last I looked. In reserve inventory, we've got approximately 22/16 equivalents in quarantine, a /10 set aside for a specific policy related to v6 transition, and 218/24s set aside for microallocations to critical infrastructure. ISP members with v4 and v6, you'll notice that the number of dual stack members is increasing, the number of v4 only members is decreasing, and we're getting very, very close to the point where those two numbers are going to cross and more people will be dual stack than v4 only. RPKI usage, you can read the numbers for yourself. The slides I think are going to be on the website if they aren't already. Transfers to specified recipients, 232 prefixes ranging from /24 to /12, 19 autonomous system numbers, and the transactions are often arranged through IPv4 brokers. In terms of inter-RIR transfers, 157 prefixes ranging from /24 to 13, and all of those have been between ARIN and APNICs thus far. We've got some policy proposals in the works. Most of them are pretty routine. Change utilization requirements, we've already discussed earlier in the RDP meeting. Remove operational DNS text, that's mainly cleaning up non-functional language that doesn't really do anything out of the NRPM. Modification to the CI pool size is awaiting board ratification, but it was adopted by the community. That's the one we talked about in the RDP working group, where we're moving that from being a 16 reserved for critical infrastructure to a 15. The others are newer and they're just getting started and under discussion. We've had a couple of policy meetings. Our next one is in Montreal, Quebec. You're of course all invited to come join us in Montreal. And with that, I'll turn the mic over and the next presenter can.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Diego Mena. I am the CFO of LACNIC. This is my first time in Tunis and in an African meeting. I'll be very happy to be here and congratulate Afrinic for its 10 years. Okay. Well, let's go to see some background information about LACNIC. We are one of the world's 5 RIR, coverage area 33 territories. There are 2 NIRs in our region. one in Mexico and the other in Brazil, and NIR's members are LACNIC members. We have over 4,500 members, 41 full staff from different kind of countries, 9 countries, and we have a new CEO since last February. Just to see membership growth, the above graph shows membership that is growing with a high rate for the last years. Last year in particular, the increase was about 1,000 members and reaching 4,500 members at the end of May. The graph below shows the breakdown by category, and the blue line shows the micro and small ISPs category. Results update. We have a policy in force related with IPv4 depletion. We have just finished and activated the phase 2 last June, 1 year ago, and we are currently in the phase 2. The phase 2, we have 2/11 blocks, reserved one for soft landing and the other for new members only. For both blocks, there is a maximum allocation of /22 and a minimum of /24. Organizations may request additional resources every 6 months until the /11 block is exhausted. And resources allocated by the IANA to LACNIC will only be allocated as set for as in phase 3 for new members only. Some graphs about IPv4 assignments. The left shows IPv/8 per year, and the other one is accumulating figures. Our current inventory, IPv4 inventory, is 0.17/8. This graph is a linear regression model for phase 2. As you can see in the pie chart, we have just assigned 59% of the /11 block, basically to ISPs, and we have still available 41% to the end of this phase. According to this graph, we estimate that the phase 3 will be triggered by the end of February or March. Some policy update summary. After the last AFRIN meeting, we have implemented a policy, and there were upon the table 3 policy proposals in LACNIC 23 in Peru 2 weeks ago. One of them reached consensus, and it is in the last call for comments, and the other 2 returned to the policy mailing list to further discussions. IPv6 and security, where we have carried out some workshops, IPv6 and security workshops in Trinidad, Tobago and Costa Rica, and also some training courses. Last year we launched a new online training platform called LACNIC Campus, and this year we have just launched an IPv6 online course and a testing v6 tutorial in LACNIC that is going to be available online in less than 2 months. Other initiatives, the first one is LACNIC Warp, that is a computer security incident response center for LACNIC members, and the other ones are related with IPv6, CertV6 and testing v6. The first one, CertV6, is a generic methodology designed by us and the Uruguayan Software Testing Center for ensure compatibility for equipment and application software in the new protocol. And testing v6, this is the name of several courses that are available on how to implement this methodology and test equipment and application in IPv4, IPv6, and dual stack environments. Some graph from the NRO webpage of IPv6 deployment, the percentage of members with both IPv4 and IPv6 in each RIR. More graphs, evolution of in-use assignments. The blue one is allocation, the red is announcements. Some regional success stories: Peru, Brazil, Bolivia. RPKI adoption rate breakdown by RIR, and in this topic LACNIC is leading by 24%, considering IPv6 root certified. Internet governance and development community building. We have an active role as our RIR in the IANA function stewardship transition process. We will have in August in Mexico the LAC IGF 8, that is a preparatory meeting for the IGF in Brazil. We continue with AGITIC project, that is an initiative aimed at strengthening Haiti's digital capabilities, and we also continue with the FRIDA project, that is a regional fund for digital innovation in Latin America and the Caribbean, and I would like to highlight the contribution of Seed Alliance, ISOC, the IDRC, and also the other RIRs like APNIC and AFRINIC. And finally, our meetings. 2 weeks ago, we have finished LACNIC 23 with almost 500 attendees. It was an excellent meeting. And upcoming meeting is LACNIC 24, LACNOG 2015 in Bogota next September, and next year our annual meeting in Cuba. So you are invited to Bogota and La Habana, Cuba. So it's finished. Thank you very much.
I can do it. Good afternoon, Axel Pavlik from RIPE NCC. Quick update from our side of the world. Well, lots of things are going on, and I'll keep it relatively short here. The slides are online, so you can have a detailed look there. Of course, we have a nice new website to look at. Membership is growing like crazy over the last couple of many months by now, and yeah, it's IPv4 runout. I think we've heard it before. What's happening here? George mentioned that same effect with us as well, which is great. More members, more or less same budget, so everybody pays a little bit less. We have over the last 5-6 years started to expand a little bit into presence in the Middle East and in the Russian area, roughly. We have then added some stuff there as well. We have an office in Dubai, small office with 2 Arab-speaking people. and a couple of others there, and we have 2 Russian-speaking folks in Moscow, based in Moscow. Basically, the idea is to engage with our members within the regions a little bit more and more consistently. Talk about contact, engagement with members, but also, of course, what is important is to talk to regulators and governments in those regions as well, and the wider communities just beyond just our members. We have been starting and contributing to larger regional meetings like the Eastern European Network Operating Group, ENOC, and MENOC in the Middle East as well. But what we have started now since last year is doing even smaller meetings, just trying to galvanize the local national communities in a couple of countries where we would not usually go with a RIPE meeting, or haven't gone in a long time. So for 2014 has seen Bulgaria, Kazakhstan, Azerbaijan, and Iran having visits from us. And this year we've already done Serbia, Georgia. We are looking forward to Armenia, and there are some other things planned as well. We also do even smaller things like member lunches. When we go with the training course, we bring a couple of people more and invite people in for lunch that are not attending the training courses. Otherwise, I think what George said there is very important to us as well. We want to meet with people face to face, and those training courses are just brilliant for that. Hey, and yes, we have still some IPv4 addresses left. That is probably why we're seeing the increase in membership there. People come directly to us when they can't go through their ISPs. And of course, some people just set up a couple of companies and get the last /22s for each of those companies and then merge afterwards. That is sort of acceptable by policy. It's not the intention, and we are looking at ways to avoid that or discourage that. Transfers are increasing, 919 in 2014, and so far in this year already more than 1100. So it's what we expected, more or less. We thought we wouldn't need much policy development process after we run out of IPv4, but couldn't be further from the truth. There's lots of things going on. Many things are focusing on IPv6, of course, but also so cleaning up our act bureaucratically or slightening, getting rid of bureaucracy there in the IPv4 field. IPv6 status, you've seen a couple of slides already. It's looking quite good. Lots of members have IPv6 address space. Not all of them are using it, of course. So we're trying to push that a little bit as well. We have now in-house a focal point. Natalie is looking at all our IPv6 efforts in-house and trying to coordinate it as well, in parallel to the trainings that she does. Also, IPv6 roadshows we've been doing traditionally in the Middle Eastern region, quite a lot of them, and we planned another 10 for this year. Now, as IPv4 addresses become more valuable, we see more attempts to hijack them and to sort of creep your way into holding them. We see rather sophisticated methods and rather blunt methods as well. So what we need to do is to keep on our toes and follow up with those things and try to prevent that and occasionally refer cases off to the police forces as well. But it's a lot of work, but it's a lot of good work, as the correctness of our registry is very high. It's the highest point of our priority list, actually. So what we have started last year very carefully is to do assisted registry checks. Basically, it's some sort of a lightweight audit prepared by us, and then we contact our members and say, look, this is what we have on your data. Is this correct? Would you care to adjust some of that? And amazingly, those activities are extremely popular, and we didn't quite expect that in the beginning. We thought it would be more seen as a bit of a nuisance, but not really like it. The last RIPE meeting we had a couple of weeks ago, we had more than 40 done on site, actually. People were queuing for them. RPKI certification, you heard it already. It's going rather well, thanks to the efforts that we are doing in terms of explaining what it is and why you might want to need it and how to do it, and also have a nice interface using it. The RIPE Interc Academy, yes, our trainings are extremely popular, and people want more and more and more, but we can't do more and more and more. We only have that many people. So what we have started is sort of an online training course, giving out courses, giving out certificates, called the RIPE NCC Academy. Now the new thing out there is B6 training course as well. We need to talk to our members to understand what their needs are. We do this regularly. We do, similar as APNIC does, big surveys every 3 years. And in between, we do smaller ones. I spare you all the details on that, but basically, we get from that what is needed, and we bring that back to the members, saying, this is what we read from this, is this correct? This is what we have been doing, this is what we continue to do, and we'll do a next big survey next year as well. One of those things in the service always was, your website sucks, it's slow, and we can't find stuff on it. And so what we did is we redesigned it and repopulated it with content. It's a bit sleeker now. The search works much better, and generally the feedback is relatively positive. So please do have a look if you care. Policy highlights, like I said, and again I just click through this quickly. Most of it is around transfers, interregional transfers. And simplification of the whole application process in-house as well. So beyond even more of that. Legacy. Yes, legacy is interesting. We have, I think by now 2 years ago, agreed with the legacy resource holders on ways that they can participate in full RIPE NCC services, of course, by becoming a member if they're not yet already one, or to go through sponsoring LIRs, or have direct not membership contact with the NCC, or just don't do anything. That also is quite a bit of work, finding those people and contacting them and getting them into those things. INR stewardship we heard a lot about already. It is high on our agenda. Outreach, apart from that, IGF is important, the regional IGFs as well. Other industry partners, we have a whole big business event coming up at the end of the year as well, beyond the IGF. We do regular roundtable meetings for governments and regulators twice a year roughly, and also similar to what I think also George said there, the law enforcement community is very interested in what we are doing, and they're using our services quite a bit for their purposes as well. So we try to reach out to them and help them with that. And of course, next RIPE meeting is coming up in Bucharest. I hope to see all of you there, or at least a large number. And that's it from me with this one. So, good afternoon. My name is Axel Pavlik. I'm the chair of the Number Resource Organization this year, so I'll give you some update about that as well. And of course, that is sort of a rotating task that the CEOs all do. So, what is the NRO? The NRO is basically a loose cooperation vehicle from by the RIRs. It's not incorporated. It's just we try to coordinate as much as possible. The mission statement here: to be the flagship and global leader for collaborative Internet number resource management is a central element of an open, stable, and secure Internet. Then I need to take a new breath. So basically, that's more or less what we all want to do, and the NRO wants to be sort of helping that, especially. A couple of things about it. It's based on an MOU, the NRO, that we signed in 2003, many years ago. It's an association, unincorporated. We coordinate ourselves. We also want to provide a single point of contact to the outside world, talking to all of the RIRs at once. Of course, we provide and support the coordinated registry system there, promote and support and defend the multi-stakeholder system. Joint activities among the RIRs is sort of done mostly within the NRO. Mentioned that already. Of course, we also fulfill the role of the EDO supporting organization within ICANN. Coordination, global collaboration, governance coordination, monitoring and contributing to global internet governance discussions is what we are doing there as well. Those are the people within the NRO at this point in time. It's me as the chair, Oscar as secretary, John as treasurer, Paul on holidays and Alan on holidays as well. Basically, they don't have any particular function within the group, but they are very active, and basically we can punt off stuff to them to do. Secretariat, we have the NRO Secretariat is hosted by LACNIC at this point in time, but also we have a continuing, ongoing executive secretary there, Germán Valdez. He's formally employed by APNIC, but the cost is split among the RIRs. We have a couple of coordination groups for communications, for public affairs, for engineering, and around the registration services areas. Finances, like I said, we split the cost that we incur through the NRO mostly. It's travel, it's communications, contribution to the IGF, contribution to ICANN, and of course a bit of staff cost there. And the budget in general is, or the cost is split proportionally, determined every year at in a new time, based on the registration services revenue from the within the RIRs. Couple of other information on the website, lots of things. Helpful occasionally is the comparative policy overview that we have there to see what RIR does what in which way. Policy-wise, we have the governance matrix that we are still working on and have been working on for a long time, basically laying out how do the RIRs do their work in terms of corporate governance, who is doing what, again, in which way. That is important for ourselves. We occasionally find little holes that we can then fill and improve our own workings. Also, it is increasingly important for the outside world that doesn't understand what the RIRs are and what they're doing. They see ICANN and the IANA stewardship transition process, and everybody's talking about ICANN accountability. The RIRs are seen somewhere in that ICANN sphere as well, and then people say, oh, but RIR accountability, what is that? So this helps with that a bit as well. We hope it does. Oops, go on. What have I done? Have I done something terrible here? Oh, there we go. Oh my God. Go back. Yes, I won't talk about IANA stewardship transition. We've done that many times already. We participate in the cost committee working group within ICANN on ICANN accountability as well. A little bit with hands off because we have not that much to do with ICANN, but we want to make sure that they don't go into any strange areas that are counter to our interests, of course, or your interest there. We've done a regular review of the ASO. I think a couple of years ago already. There were a couple of recommendations. We implement improvements there as well, as we should. The Internet Governance Forum is coming up again. We went to the 9th one in Turkey. The next one, of course, we are focusing on that one now, is in Brazil at the end of the year. And we say that the Internet Governance Forum is the area for Internet governance activities for the RIR, so we focus very much on that. And that's it. For now, I'll remain here until tomorrow. You have ample opportunity to ask me questions, or in a moment as well. Thank you.
No Master of Ceremonies today. Hi, I'm Mark Elkins. You may have seen me before. I am the ASO representative of the board, and these are my slides. The slides were taken mainly from slides we've previously done. I don't know how many people in the audience haven't already seen more or less what these slides are, etc. So I think I will go quite quickly through the first few. But what are all the acronyms? What do they all mean? You've been listening to them already, so hopefully that's fine. Things that we do, appointments to the ICANN board and other ICANN groups, and we look after global policies. That's the same slide again in more detail. Who's members of the ASO? AFRINIC, APNIC, ARIN, RIFE, NCC, and LACNIC, of course. And Axel has gone through most of this already. So basically the ASO is where the RIR system meets the ICANN system. And there's mention of the NRO, which we've gone through already as well. 15 members are on the ASO, so that's 3 from each of the 5 regions. 2 of those positions elected by the RIR community and 1 appointed by that RIR board. Normally a term is for 3 years, and different RIRs obviously have different processes or procedures for electing or appointing members. The characters are in Afrinic, myself, Fiona and Douglas. I have taken over from Alan Barrett as he is now the CEO. So I've been doing this job for about 6-8 weeks. And there hasn't been too many other changes in the characters. The first name against each RIR is the board appointee. And Louis Lee is the chair of the ASO. And Flitz is the vice chair, last name. So work that's happened in the last 6 months since Mauritius would include, for example, looking after 2 of the seats, seat 9 and seat 10 of the board, which are 2 seats staggered each by 3 years. So the ASO looks after the nomination committee, as well, appointments to the nomination review teams as well. So seat 9, my understanding is Ray Platts is still there, and seat 10 is also occupied. Seat 9 was up for reappointment, or is up for reappointment. The whole process has been completed. Elections were held, the name was published, and that happens in October. The change of seat from Ray Platts to Ron Da Silva happens in September this year. So congratulations to Ron Da Silva. That has been officially announced, I believe. Other people have other appointments or have been appointed. So we have Hans Peter Hollen on Nomcom. No. Thank you. And these are ASO, AC appointed people who are on the cross-community working group, which does include Fiona. Global policy processes. Global policy is an independent number resource policy that is accepted in totality by all 5 RIRs, and obviously therefore requires action by ANA or another ICANN body. Must go through the policy development process separately in each region, and reviewed by the NRO and ASO, ratified by the ICANN board. There are no current global policies at the moment on the table. Additional information, address aso.icann.org is the place to look at more information about ASO. And the funding, the NRO provides funding for the AC's activities, and NRO Secretariat, it's more or less the same slide as Axel had, is German Valdez. Thank you.
So I'll call Pierre Danginou, and then we will take questions.
Well, thank you very much, and I'm Pierre Danginou, VP ICANN for. IANA activities, update. My colleague, of IANA actually was supposed to be coming here to deliver this update. Unfortunately, she had a very last minute, issue to deal with, and she could not do it so well. But since we are covering Africa, we are just doing this for her. Which means that, of course, if there were any questions, definitely I'll just take them back to her. But I think briefly, the updates are going to be done in kind of 4 points. Quick on the policy implementation, and then on the LDRP implementation, the ODs that are conducted, and then the performance reports. So basically, 3 quick items. Of course, what the IANA, definitely does also is, and mainly does is, working according to the global policy that's actually been discussed, with the community. So what was done so far was to implement some of those policy kind of advice that were received. It has to be noted that the IPv4 for instance allocation was done twice in the year, 1st of March and then 1st of September. And here briefly you have what has been allocated for as of 2nd actually of March. And basically this is about the timeline, but also you also know that there is a software package that help do this. Of course, the details on the allocation is provided there on the screenshot, and information is available on the website as well. So the March 15 allocation under the global policy as well was made. And here is basically what has been achieved, slash 13 equivalent, and each area received, 524,288 addresses. So they are there where they are located, and we have designation, and the end addresses are available to each region. And then to the AS numbers, the advice was to allocate AS numbers block to area, and as of September 14, IANA had 496, 16-bit AS numbers available. And the advice was that each area could request a block of 1024 numbers that is made up of a specified number of 16 bits and 32 bits as well. So since then, 297 of those has been allocated to EPINIC, LACNIC, and ARIN. There's still 199 16 bits, ASN remaining. Now on to the second point quickly, which is the registration data access protocol. So a quick update on that one as well. This according to RFC's 7484, finding the authoritative registration data service was published in March 2015. And the IANA department completed the creation of registries specified in the RFC. They are currently working with RIA to design a process to add and maintain the LDRP entries in the relevant registries. LDRP entries apply to the following IANA numbers, registries, and as the IANA IPv4 address space registry, the IPv6 global unicast address assignments, and the autonomous system numbers. And the IANA IPv4 address space, registry look like this one. More information are there. Those who are reserved, those are allocated, and also information on the who is where to find them. So, and the script card here, provide more information, and the website as well is available for these details. Then apart from this, what's happening here? Okay, so let's go to the third point, which is the audit. And the audits are actually kind of mandatory. And recently, I kind of retained the Service Organization Control. This is SOC 3 certification of its domain name system. I mean the DNSSEC actually. With root key signing system for the 5th consecutive year. I also completed the second SOC2 audit, which evaluated key systems used to support IANA transaction processing functions. They are also undergoing independent audit, and all of those help IANA to perform what it has to do. And this is also based on the integrity and security services level of the IANA function. So these audits are quite important. Those audits are conducted every year, and of course help IANA monitor and improve the system. And then on the performance report, quickly, there again there is a regular monthly reports that is published about the performance. Performance standards, of course, were developed in conjunction with the community. So IANA abide by those, and also so far I think IANA currently either meets or exceeds those all those performance targets. Details of the reporting is there, especially on some of the targets and some of the criteria. The allocation of the internet numbering resources. This also provides you with kind of result of what we might call the performance in the evaluation, and you will see in most of those places, well, they did meet the targets. There are details there, I'm not going to go through them, but of course this is available on the website. Also, as it comes to the zone, the root zone management, just have to bear in mind that there were recently a few requests that were processed. What's important here is the number of requests you have in yellow here, and then the appropriate, the average processing time, or in terms of days. Details are there. Of course, one can also come back on those and explain. But basically, I think IANA try to perform it the way it has to be done. So, it's in a nutshell, that is the kind of updates I would like to provide. And of course, if there's any question, I will just take them and back to IANA and my colleague. And thank you very much.
Thank you. I'll take questions before we break off for coffee, and then we will have the service updates. Sean?
Thank you very much. My question is actually to the NRO on NRO. It looks like...
but I think that Axel has left.
Yeah, so...
Okay, maybe Mark can answer?
Okay. All right, so what I need to know is, does NRO, do they make budgets? Do they do anything financials in terms of, because I understand that there's contributions that is made by each of the IRRs.
Sean, excuse me, actually Axel is coming back, so you can state your question to him. Thank you, Axel.
Yeah, that is contributions that is made to by HIRs, and it should be good to know if the NRO does make budget for that, for the spending, and if they do audit. Of course, I understand that NRO as a body is not incorporated, but do you actually do the budgeting and the auditing of spending, and are those available on the NRO website? Thank you. The mics are failing. Yeah, okay. Yeah. Yes.
Now it's on. Sorry. So a large part of the cost that is incurred through the NRO to the RIRs is a part of the ICANN contribution that has been stable for the last 16 years or 15 years, $823,000 US. Then there is a bit of travel for the Address Council, for the secretary. There's secretary's salary that comes through APNIC to us. And those costs we split among ourselves, changing every year. It's based on the revenue that all the RIRs have based on the registration services. And the reason I'm saying this is because, for instance, RIPE NCC does lots of other things as well. So we're looking at that registration services related revenue. And then we calculate the percentages, and roughly, I think for the RIPE NCC, for instance, it's